Hey everyone, welcome to edition 2 of our brand new podcast edition of The Final Takeaway. Whether you're a long-time subscriber or you're tuning in for the first time, we are so excited to have you here. And yes, welcome Trinidad and all of you from wherever you're tuning in from this evening. This podcast is an extension of the conversations, the stories, and deep dives you've come to love about our YouTube channel. And it also allows you to enjoy our content on the go because we're not so much focused on the visuals, we're focused on discussing issues and getting to the bottom of topics in the news. So grab your headphones, settle in, and let's get into it. Grab your coffee, sit back, relax, and let's get to the bottom of this unfolding story. Speaking of coffee, trade in your coffee mug for one from the Final Takeaway store. And if you like tea, that's okay. You can also purchase one of these lovely mugs and enjoy tea just as much. Check out our new selections below the video. Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister, Kamla Persad-Bissessar, came in for heavy criticism for taking a powerful military stance against Venezuela. This follows her stern warning to Venezuela that TNT's military is authorized to use, quote, deadly force on any unauthorized Venezuelan persons or vessels entering its territory. Persad-Bissessar took this strong military posturing against Venezuela after its government officials recently made statements that were taken as a threat to the territorial integrity of Trinidad and Tobago. Let's listen to what she said.
I will speak to Minister of Defense and Attorney General to seek advice on protections for our Coast Guard, to use deadly force on any unidentified vessel entering TT waters from Venezuela.
Stressing that TNT is, quote, off limits, and further defending her deadly force statement as a necessary response to Venezuela's veiled threat. The Prime Minister reminded us that, quote, they made similar propaganda comments about Guyana and Colombia whenever they had interior political problems or elections, and then they engaged in border skirmishes with violence. We will take these threats very seriously. Alrighty guys, so it looks like Venezuela barked up the wrong tree, or they are underestimating Kamla, or they are testing the waters, if you know what I mean. What are your views? If you're Guyanese watching this, you already know President Irfaan Ali's approach involves issuing calls to Venezuela for peace and stability. Another diplomatic strategy is informing the International Court of Justice, the United States, and other key stakeholders. And don't worry, Ali has had his fair share of heavy criticism for taking what some think is a weak stance on Venezuela's sovereignty claims over Essequibo. Yeah, I digressed. But it's relevant and important to draw such parallels in how different countries respond to the Maduro regime's quote-unquote bullyism. But let's get back on point. While many praised Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister for having the balls to stand up to President Maduro, others criticized her approach. This evening, I'd like for us to take a look at this issue of threats of incursion by Venezuela and how some political critics responded specifically to Persad-Bissessar. In summary, these are dissenting voices who think the threat wasn't called for. We want to know what you think. Whether you're a die-hard Trinidadian living in Trinidad and Tobago, whether it's in Port of Spain or Sawa, did I say that right, or abroad, or whether you simply have an interest in TNT's politics. We want to hear from you. And by the way, now's a great time to like, share, subscribe, and turn on all YouTube notifications for updates, and follow us on Facebook and X. See all links below the video. Also, if you'd like more context on this developing story, please take a look at the video we uploaded earlier today, which goes into more details. Anywho's, the list of people who warned or criticized TNT's Prime Minister includes, you guessed right, Venezuela's president himself, Nicolás Maduro, TNT's former Prime Minister, Stuart Young, and others from Trinidad's political and security establishment also joined the bandwagon. They include former Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley and National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines. But let's start with Maduro. Seeking to de-escalate the situation, Maduro has appealed to the president of Trinidad and Tobago to resolve their growing maritime conflict through diplomacy rather than force. He urged Port of Spain to engage in dialogue, stressing the historical and cultural ties between both nations and the need to avoid unnecessary confrontation in an already unstable region. Maduro emphasized that diplomacy offers a platform for understanding and compromise, whether mutual concerns over sovereignty and security can be addressed without resorting to militarized rhetoric or action. But did I tell you that was after Venezuela bashed the prime minister? On June 6, 2025, Caracas issued a formal response to Trinidad's prime minister, expressing, quote, profound surprise at Persad-Bissessar's stern warning that, quote, any unidentified vessels entering Trinidad's waters will be met with deadly force. It accused the Prime Minister of reacting with hostility and cautioned her on her, quote, virulent and high-sounding attitude, adding that she's engaging in irresponsible, dangerous, and aggressive rhetoric. Overall, Venezuela is not having it. It warns that the approach could jeopardize long-standing bilateral relations between the two countries. Tell me what you think about Maduro calling for diplomacy when, even in this moment as we gather here, Venezuela has taken steps to annex Essequibo, a territory that has been internationally recognized as Guyana's territory since 1899. Do you sense hypocrisy here? The former prime minister condemned Kamla's brutal warning to Venezuela, adding that she risks jeopardizing key energy ties with the neighboring country, including the Manatee gas project. He even described the prime minister's position as, quote, borderline insanity, and urged a more measured approach. Okay, that's kind of insulting. Tell me what you think. Let me read some of his statements. Quote, it is the height of irresponsibility to declare a use of deadly force policy on any unidentified vessels entering Trinidad and Tobago's waters from Venezuela. He also said, carrying on with false bravado associated with soapbox politics is not only unbecoming, but frankly dangerous in the circumstances. Another former Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, labeled her comments as reckless and unpatriotic, accusing her of needlessly provoking Venezuela and risking damage to energy projects like the Dragon gas deal. Rowley warned that such, quote, ill-advised direct attack on the Maduro government is an attempt to provoke them to scuttle any favorable dealings with Trinidad and Tobago. National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines, along with cabinet officials, emphasized that existing policies already empowered law enforcement to act within Trinidad's laws. Hines cautioned that Persad-Bissessar's aggressive stance could play politics, unfairly scapegoat migrants, and inflame xenophobic tensions. In short, government critics viewed her remarks as overly confrontational, potentially reckless, and politically charged, rather than a measured defense of national security. They argued she went too far, offering what they described as inflammatory rhetoric that risked diplomatic fallout and domestic social division. Alrighty, so how will diplomacy help? Diplomacy would serve as a constructive mechanism to reduce tensions. It will clarify intentions and help prevent conflict. Through bilateral talks or mediation by regional bodies such as CARICOM or CELAC, both governments could revisit maritime agreements, they could discuss border security cooperation, and they could establish communication channels to handle future misunderstandings. This approach would also help protect civilian lives, maintain trade and migration flows between the two nations, and boost regional stability. Given the humanitarian challenges Venezuela faces and the economic and security priorities of Trinidad and Tobago, diplomacy is not just the safer route, it is the only viable long-term solution to ensuring peace and mutual respect. Hey, thanks for staying with me to the end. Drop me a comment so I can send you a big shout out in the next episode. Here is where we have to part ways, unfortunately, but hey, you can catch me in the next episode of the Final Takeaways podcast edition, or you can check out all our videos on the channel. Thanks for watching. Stay safe.